Hello. Hi. Welcome. A little bit of a technical difficulty there. Welcome. My name is Caridad Switch. I'll be the moderator today for a Charla con Repertorio, focusing on the production of Locuras in Wichita, Wild in Wichita, and a conversation with the director, Luis Fernandez, and the actors, Frank Robles and Miriam Cruz. I want to first start with some just acknowledgments, so bear with me. Since 1982, the Hostos Center has been an integral part of Hostos Community College of the City University of New York, and is recognized nationally as a leader in Latino, Latina, Latinx, and African-based programming. Hostos Center thanks its sponsors, the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, the New York State Council on the Arts, the Howard Gilman Foundation, the Coalition of the Theaters of Color, the National Endowment for the Arts, and the offices of New York State Assemblyman Jose Rivera and New York City Council member Rafael Salamanca Jr. Hostos Center is offering free and on-demand streaming of Repertorio Español's production of Locuras in Wichita, now through tomorrow, Sunday, June 13th. You may have watched it already or are planning to watch by tomorrow. Watch it once or watch it twice. You will have 72 hours to watch from the time you receive the viewing link. Use the discount code HOSTOS, HOSTOS, when you register. That's HOSTOS with an H. Audience, if you're there, we will take questions at the end of the discussion. We encourage you to write your question in the chat feature on Zoom and in the comments section of Facebook and YouTube. And now I'd like to welcome director Luis Fernandez, actors Miriam Cruz, and actor Frank Robles. So lovely if you could turn your cameras on, please. Hey, Luis, I see you.
Hi, Caridad.
Hey, hello, Luis. Hi, Miriam. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. You look great.
Thank you so much. A pleasure. Hopefully, is Frank here? I guess we don't know. Hopefully, making their way. But you're here. We'll start with you. First of all, I wanted to have you introduce yourselves, but specifically in relationship to this play and how it came to you. So, Luis, starting with you. How did this play land in your lap? This play by Lina Gallegos.
Yes, through the road less traveled, I would say, because I mean, my wife and I, Mimi Lazo and I, we're good friends of Repertorio for a long, long, long time. Basically taking our place there. I'm an actor, writer, and director, and I guess that Robert Federico, the director of Repertorio, liked my work at some point, and he invited me to direct this play. Curiously, my subject matters are usually very dark and very edgy and very out there. And when I read Locuras in Wichita, the title, I said, well, this is going to be a wild ride. And then I read it and I was surprised as I was reading it with this beautiful, beautiful play, so well written by Lina Gallegos. It's a romantic comedy, which is way out of my comfort zone as a genre. But the wonderful part is that it's a romantic comedy with the romantic leads being in their 80s or 70s, and that was such a subversive thing, a brilliant thing from Lina Gallegos that totally moved me, it shook me, and I said, this is going to be wonderful. And then, of course, I got to meet Miriam and Frank, which are lovely, incredibly talented, beautiful actors, and it was a joy ride, actually.
Yay, awesome. It's such a tender and sweet play, and it catches you by surprise, I think. And it is a romantic comedy. It has all those sort of beats that romantic comedy has, but it also has moments of, melancholy and tragedy and despair, but also like a loving, loving heart. You can really sense in Lina's work an affection for these characters, and it really comes through. Miriam, you originated the role of Carmela. Tell us about creating Carmela on stage. If we can find you, maybe you're frozen.
Well, Miriam?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, Miriam. Yeah, sorry. We'd love for you to talk about playing Carmela.
Carmela. Well, Carmela Dominguez. It's a woman that is very tense, very practical, very private. She's a single woman, never was married. Right at the moment of when the play starts, she is in a nursing home temporarily, as she says, waiting for her son to find her an apartment because she's going through some bouts of depression. And if you want me to tell you the story, one day she meets Frank Robles' character, Joaquin Miranda, and they clash instantly. There was no connection whatsoever. And she thought that he was very rude. She is very proper. He's so too happy. She's very serious. She was a teacher. And from the beginning, there was a dislike and a disconnection because of their background, their culture. One is Mexican. Frank's role. He's born here, but of Mexican descent. I am Puerto Rican, and we like different things.
Indeed, yes. I believe you're frozen, but we'd love to hearing that. Greg, can we go to the first clip to give an audience a notion, if they haven't seen the show, of how this relationship transpires? So go to clip 1, please. Thank you. And we'll go off camera.
Llevamos 3 días. Estás matando, no seas tan mala. Pero está bien, ya te entiendo. Pero, ¿me quieres escuchar? No hay que decir nada, nadita. Ay, Carmela, ¿no me puedes escuchar por un minuto, por favor? Mira, una de las cosas que más me gustan de ti, de todas las cosas que me gustan de ti, son tus buenos modales, ¿sí? Eres una mujer cortés, respetuosa, una verdadera dama, ¿sí? Así que tú sabes, cuando alguien te ofrece un regalo, lo apropiado es aceptarlo y dar las gracias. Y no, si no te...
Gracias.
Ahora me hablas de nuevo, ¿verdad? Claro, sí, claro. Sí, ya me estabas extrañando, ¿verdad? Me entiendo. Es más, mira, he decidido perdonarte.
¿Por qué?
Por terminar nuestra relación.
¿Pero qué relación ni qué relación? ¿Tú estás loco?
Estás loco por ti,
No,
muñeca.
mira, toma, no la quiero.
Pues ni yo tampoco la quiero, soy alérgico a ellas.
No quiero ser tu amiga.
Ni yo tampoco. Quiero que seamos más que amigos. Seamos amantes. Enamorados.
¿Qué?
Quiero que seas mi mujer.
¡Tú estás loco! Ay, Joaquín, tú estás loco, mi hijo, tú estás loco. Un hombre como tú, jamás. Ay, Joaquín. Ay, Dios mío. Tu mujer, tu amante. Oye, Joaquín, ¿qué estás haciendo? No puedes, tienes diabetes.
¿Qué? ¿Para que te rías de mí? ¿Para que te rías de mí? ¿Ah?
Ay, la caché. Ay, Joaquín. No me estoy riendo de ti. Me estoy riendo de la situación. Estamos demasiado viejos ya para ser novios o enamorados o como quieras llamarlo. Estamos muy viejos.
¿Y quién dice eso?
Pues todo el mundo. Sería ridículo ponerse con esa cursilería. ¿Qué diría la gente?
¿Qué importa el qué dirán?
Cool, great, awesome. Great to see a bit of the play in action. For those of you who haven't seen it yet, here's a little teaser, as it were. I believe I saw Frank Robles. Frank, are you there? Maybe for a moment, or maybe not. Hopefully he'll come back. Luis, talk to us about directing comedy, since this isn't your like go-to.
Yeah, well, that's Frank. Frank, so good to see you. I haven't
Hola,
seen you.
hi, ¿cómo
Hola, Frank, how
están?
are you?
Ok, lo siento que llegué un poco tarde, ¿no?
No hay problema. No hay
Ok.
problema.
It's so wonderful, Caridad, to see Miriam and Frank again. We haven't seen each other in years.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yeah, it's one. Well, this is one of the wonders of this new way of communicating with the excuse of our play that we did a few years back. Listen, directing. I don't approach directing comedy or directing drama in a different way. It's just finding the soul of the play, which in Lina's Gallego's play is so obvious and so wonderful and so clear. And the first thing is the chemistry between Frank and Miriam, actually, because there's nothing, once in this kind of play, if there's no chemistry between the actors, there's no play. It just doesn't work. And the chemistry between them is fantastic since day one. I was in love with them from the get-go. So it was so easy. And they're so professional and they're so committed. And, the tight schedule of Repertorio, putting up a production, it was wonderful. And I was tough on them. And they came with like 6-7 pages all memorized. And then the next day, Miriam had all the blocking perfectly memorized. It was a joy. I mean, it was fantastic. And so it goes with, finding the soul of the scenes and what they mean. And as you saw in the clip, it's basically, what the wonderful thing about Lina's play is that we live in these jails of our prejudice and our beliefs. Is like when Miriam characters say, we're too old for this. We cannot fall in love at this stage of our life. Why not? It's because something we learned, because they're un par de viejitos, so they cannot be lovers at this point. So it's just an agreement that we make. And when Lina writes it, you realize that, we think about our grandparents or, being in your 70s and you're like a side character, you're a supporting role in the family and the grandkids and the kids. But seeing these two wonderful, beautiful people in their two wonderful seniors falling in love madly and going wild for the first time in their lives. It's like, oh my God, this is subversive. I mean, I want this to happen to me when I'm in my 80s. So yeah, it's wonderful. So yeah, it's a play full of joy and hope. And as you said, it takes some turns towards drama and nostalgia and sadness. But that's life. That's the wonderful thing about this play.
Yeah, so true. Frank, what was it like to create Joaquin, this wonderful, charming character? Yeah.
Well, actually, I think, first I want to say that Luis is an absolutely fabulous director. He really, really put it together. And working with Miriam, whom I've known obviously for many years, since Repertorio and before, one of the interesting things about this particular character, I think it was kind of an interesting detail when Lina Gallegos, the author of the play, came to New York to approve the cast, in which case Miriam was perfectly cast. She's a beautiful Puerto Rican, una dama puertorriqueña, no? And the other character is a Mexican character. And the conversation, it became obvious that I am not Mexican. I am from Puerto Rico also. So for a minute there, I think Lina said, oh my God. So I have a Puerto Rican lady and I'm supposed to have a Mexican, and Frank is not Mexican. But then we started to read the play, and thanks to the many years that I've been working in and out of Mexico, I was quickly able to give her the Mexican accent, the Distrito Federal that she wanted. So after that, it was fine, no issues. And it's a beautiful play. And it is at this time in our lives, actually, as we're getting on in years, it is beautiful to understand that, the love is eternal. You find love where you least expect it. And certainly these two characters did not expect to meet each other and to fall in love and do some of these silly things that that we ended up doing. But it's a rewarding experience for both of us, actually.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. There's a moment near the end. I'm not going to give anything away, but describing this moment won't be a spoiler, which is to say that there's a moment where Joaquin, your character, Frank, puts on a CD on the CD player, and there's dancing. And then Miriam goes, "Wait a minute. I have an even better one," right? And then there's like the next one. So what's delightful about some of the things that the play deals with is also this cross-cultural romance. And I know at the beginning there's a very kind of like, it's not only opposites attract, but it's also like, you're Mexican, you have nothing to do with me, or like your culture is very different. All these kind of like prejuicios, right? Like prejudices that the characters carry. And I think that Frank's character is constantly going, but we could get on. This is wonderful, And so I love the kind of way that the play navigates in a very human and very quotidian way. Simple, cotidiano. Like. Just like, how we relate to each other, actually, and sometimes how we put walls up in front of each other why are we doing that, right? And so, and then how those walls kind of break down as the play moves forward. So it's not just this love story, but also a cross-cultural, a story about, aspects of Latinidad that sometimes we don't see, I think,
right.
actually.
And it's wonderful, Caridad, that Erlina wrote it this way, because if you live in New York, you're probably familiar with Dominicans and Puerto Ricans. If you live in LA, you're familiar with Mexicans. And that's what Latinos mean for Americans living among us. So it's wonderful to see that Mexicans and Puerto Ricans, and I'm Venezuelan, so we're so different. We're so different. And we have our little cultural clashes between us. So it's very, very common, a Mexican saying, "Oh, but he's Puerto Rican," or a Venezuelan saying, "Oh, these freaking Mexicans drive me crazy." So it's beautiful that she shows it, that kind of without trying hard to do it, it's just naturally shows how diverse we can be as Latinos as well.
Absolutely. With that in mind, let's go to the second clip. Greg, clip number 2.
He's like a stubborn child. He's not aware of his own limitations.
I am happy that she's getting some exercise, but she's awfully fragile and she shouldn't be doing anything too strenuous. I know she can be stubborn.
What?
I know.
Yes.
I know. Could you ask her to call me?
I just want you to know that if anything bad happens to my father, I will hold the nursing home responsible.
Please, I am sorry that I am not able to go again this weekend. The 2 of my children are sick.
You guys are getting paid a lot of money to take care of my father. I expect you to do your job, and I expect you to do it well, and that's all I have to say. Goodbye.
We'll come down as soon as we can.
And please, don't forget to tell him that I can't see him again this weekend. I've been trying, but he just won't pick up his phone. We're both working on grueling cases, and we simply can't get there.
Thank you again, and please call me right away if anything bad happens to her. You can call me anytime.
We'll see him again next weekend.
Okay.
Maybe.
Bye.
Who the hell is Carmela? Carmela?
Who the hell is Joaquin Miranda?
I don't like this.
I don't like this.
I don't like this at all. Dos. Dos, tres, cuatro.
5.
6.
7.
8.
9.
10.
11.
Ay, Dios.
Mira todas las que yo tengo, Y algunas de estas son 3 veces al día.
Ay, Dios mío, me ganaste, Joaquín, me
Sí,
ganaste.
yo estaba mucho más enfermo que tú.
Yo no soy el epítome de la buena salud, por eso es que estamos aquí.
Sí, pero temporalmente.
Sí, temporalmente.
Sí, hasta que estemos mejor.
No, hasta que estemos más fuertes.
Tú sabes que ya yo me siento mejor, Te dije que estas caminatas nos harían bien.
Pues tienes razón, yo también me siento más fuerte, mira. Las piernas ya de casi me molestan.
Ay, qué bien. Oye, dilo otra vez. Muy bien.
¿Qué cosa?
Que yo tenía razón la primera vez que te oigo decir eso.
Bueno, y quizás la última, así que disfrútala.
Pinche perros, ¿eh? Tú sabes, mira, tengo que confesarte.
¿Qué?
Que si a uno le fuera a dar un infarto,
Sí.
así, Wichita es el mejor lugar para eso.
¿De veras?
Sí, los médicos del Alicia Hospital me salvaron la vida 2 veces. Sí, la última operación que tuve, ¿sabes? Sí, fue un triple coronary bypass.
Ay,
Sí, y solo me costó $14,000.
¿Dices solo?
¿Es qué? Los médicos de Dallas me querían cobrar $80,000.
$80,000, ladrones.
Sí, carísimo enfermarse.
No, además de estar uno viejo.
Sí.
Hey, wow. So, and that's this clip where we got to meet two characters that are obviously not with us today, two actors that aren't with us today that play the daughter and adopted son of Joaquin and Carmela, respectively. Welcome. I wanted to welcome back Miriam and Frank. So, if you could turn your cameras on, that would be delightful. And look at, I think one of the trajectories of this play is somewhat sad, and I'd love to sort of address that just for a tiny bit, and not dwell on it entirely, but just a tiny bit to look at how you navigated as performers and directors, respectively, how the play moves into this space that's actually, we're rolling along in the comedy of it, and then all of a sudden it takes this turn. And we're in that place of the tragedy for quite a while in the play until it comes back up. And so that takes like a different way of calibrating how you're going to take care of the audience, basically through that experience. So I'd love to sort of address the moments of taking care of this element of the story, and also the respect that the storytelling by Gallegos does in this aspect of the play.
Was that for me, Caridad?
Sí, Miriam.
Because I didn't hear half of it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's quite a surprise at the end of the first act when they are already liking each other, doing things together, and he wants to declare his love for her. He kneels down and he faints, and he ends up in the hospital.
Right.
My character is so impressed that she goes into this depression that we didn't expect, because she had already been going through a lot of depression previously, but he doesn't know about this. I don't know about him. So I like what Lina did with the characters, because being Carmela, such an active such a serious lady, and so determined and so stern, that it took her a lot for her to hear from Joaquin that she is in love. So she goes into that depression, and it so happens that everything that she was doing at the beginning of the play, doing the puzzles, because she doesn't want to lose her memory, you see him coming back, and she is into another world. When I started the play, I personally decided to do some things that I have not done in other plays. I said, she has to be quiet for such a long time. I'm going to be stiff and be in my world. And I was. But for me to get to that point and make an effect on the audience, I had to do other things at the beginning of the play. So I selected to make her busy all the time. If you watch the first act, she's always doing things. She's doing the cubic
puzzle, yeah.
that the puzzle, she's doing
Yeah.
her puzzles, and then she's always fixing her hair, she's playing with the scarf, she's tying the rope, because she is super nervous. So I want the audience to see her moving out of nervousness, for her to have an effect on the second act and be still. But more than being still, being into that world of the unknown, searching for things. Her brain wasn't working. So it was quite a drastic decision from my part, but I think it worked. I think it did work. She went into that, and when she realized and she heard a word that it was pincho, what was the phrase, Frank? Pincho,
Home Depot. Pinche Home Depot. Yeah.
She clicked.
You know, actually, another detail is it is a comedy, yes, and there are a lot of instances where you can laugh. It's funny, but it's also interesting that Lena, in this process, this comedy that she wrote, there was another side to it. I mean, that whole scene about the medical issue, the prescription, the high cost of health care. But from the point of view of this particular character, making light of it, like, hey, I'm taking 10 pills, you're taking 20, I'm taking 30. It's like a big joke, but it's not a joke. It was actually a point well made, the high cost of healthcare for everybody, and especially so for seniors. That was an issue. The other thing about this depression also, it's also a reality. It's dealing with a very, very serious, complicated, and sometimes you don't know how to approach it or what to do with it. And as Joaquin, when I had the incident where I had the heart attack and came back, it was one of the most painful scenes for me when I came back and I realized that she was out of it, that she had left us. I had died, almost died, but I came back, and now she's still alive, but she's not alive because she's not here. And then the effort to work with someone under those conditions, to help that person to come back. And that magic word, the pinche Home Depot, that took me out of business. And that was the key, that her mind suddenly clicked, and now she's back. She's here. That was kind of a beautiful thing. And Luis obviously did a fabulous job in staging this scene. And at the end of it, ending with the beautiful Agustín Lara, Solamente una vez. And it's true, solamente una vez you fall in love. Yeah.
Indeed.
And you said something interesting, Caridad, at the beginning, is that how do you take care of the audience if you're going to pull them into a comedy and then it's going to take a turn almost off genre?
Yes.
Well, and this is something that I think we discussed a lot, because, for instance, my mom has Alzheimer's, so it's very, very tough. It's a horrible disease, and if you see something going to that direction as an audience, I would detach, because it's going to be way too painful for me. But one of the things of comedy, I mean, life is way too difficult to take it so seriously. So you have to have a sense of humor, which is what these characters have. So you pull the audience into the comedy of it, and the brilliant scene of the healthcare system and the medication and the prescription drugs that these guys are taking, that they're way over medicated. And then at the end, you see that the only thing that they need is love, which sounds trivial, but it's true. If you are in love, you don't need all that medication. Depression is gone. His heart is fantastic. Her mind is right there. All you need is love. It sounds hippie, but it's true. And then you have to have all these elements to pull the audience in, and then you surprise them with the tragedy of life, and then they're already in. They cannot pull back, and so they go with it. It's fantastic. It's very well written by.
It is. It's a beautiful play by Lina Gallegos. If you guys don't know her work, check it out. I will say that I wanted to talk just a little bit about design I know we don't have designers in the room, but I was kind of fascinated by the design element in this, even though it's very simple. The blinds, the use of green. Green is like a very strong color in this show, and
It is.
you know, the green of life, right? That sort of verdant
Verde de la
color.
Esperanza.
Let me tell you something about that.
Esperanza.
That's right.
Let me tell you something about that, Caridad.
Tell me about it, because I was like all over it.
I'm a bit of a control freak, and I'm an architect. I studied architecture. So one of the things that I love Repertorio for letting me do this is that they said, well, I started saying, hey, let's have this, let's have this, let's have the green. And they just allow me to do the production design, basically, the music and the sets and the whole art direction, because that's what I love doing. And then I talked to Robert and Fernando, and I told them, listen, green, that color, that specific green is hope, of course, we know that, but that specific green is the green that nurses use in their uniforms usually. So when you go into an ER or something like that, that's the color that they all have in their uniform. So why don't use that color in a different scenario? And in her floral dress and in their wonderful golf blazer jacket, and see it in a different context, because that's color is usually when you go into a hospital, that's the color that stands out. That is wonderful that you noticed, because it wasn't a coincidence. It was a choice.
It's also the color of money.
Exactly.
And the color of money.
It can be peace, and it can be greed and all sorts of things. So yes.
Yeah. I just wanted to touch on a little bit on the landscape of this play, which is set in Wichita. There are not a lot of plays set in Wichita, by the way. So it's also like, I think there's something unique. There's so many plays set in New York and in Chicago and, urban centers. And there's something fascinating about Lena's choice to unseat the centrality of the narrative and place it in, a city that people might not think about very often. Do you know what I mean? And again, in a very prejudicial way and in a very provincial way, from an audience perspective. And so I wondered how much research you all did around, pictures of Wichita or thinking about the landscape and how it's informing your characters living temporarily in this nursing home. Miriam,
Well,
what was it like to think about Wichita?
I didn't even know where Wichita was. I have to ask. So
Which I think
anyway,
is the point.
Which is the point.
Yes. So it was perfect for me. It was perfect. But the same place is where got them together, Wichita. They did all the adventures in Wichita. They really got together, and they saw their hearts. And they came with the conclusion that Frank's character, Joaquin, had never loved before. She was a single woman. She had adopted a student's child, and that was her son, but she was never married. And she said in the play she never fell in love. And he does also. He says, love brought us together. He had never loved, and she had never loved. So Wichita was the perfect place for them to get together.
Actually, the interesting, you don't want to go too far into trying to psychoanalyze everything. But I mean, if you're coming from a big city and suddenly of all the places in the world that you probably will never ever think that you would want to go to, Wichita, I mean, there's no relationship to anything except Wichita became, it was the symbol of Wizard of Oz. It was that place where Judy Garland and Bert Lahr and all of these fabulous actors, they were searching for something. The lion, the cowardly lion was looking for courage. The straw man was looking for a brain. And she was looking for the Wizard of Oz to the answers. And there's a little issue there when his Joaquin is very upset about the fact that of all the places in the world, I should be here. And
Right.
then he goes on and on, and then that crazy old lady in that bicycle chasing that, and then he asked her, said, "Well, what's the name of that dog?" And she said, "Toto." I said, "That's right." Finally, there was something that they did that he found, and anyway, that was kind of fun. And yeah, I did wonder why, of all places, Wichita, and I wonder if, in fact, it was like that one place that you hope to find that's gonna give you something that you didn't have before. Yeah.
And as Miriam said, I didn't know where Wichita was. Of course, I was living in New York and Los Angeles, but come on, the Midwest, like, that was way out of my understanding of America. But Dennis, I mean, if you take into account that Frank's character is a Mexican, I always related him to LA, and Miriam to New York, being Puerto Rican, and Wichita being like the place in the middle where they can meet, which was a metaphor of the common, that we have more things in common than things that separates us. So Wichita is like the perfect place where there are no Latinos in Wichita, so they are there, and they find that they have, even as different as they are as characters, they have more in common than things that separates us. So much so that they end up discovering the love of their life in Wichita. That's wonderful.
Yeah. And it also operates, interestingly, as sort of a neutral ground, as it were.
Right.
Neither of them are from Wichita. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like this place where they kind of landed.
Yeah.
They've landed there.
Yeah, like aliens in Wichita.
Yeah, like, and they're trying to find their way. It's like fascinating, and I love how the title teases us with wild. And the idea of adventure, and in Spanish, locuras, you know, which, and I remember when I first saw the title, I thought, and you know, before I read the play many years ago, I was like, oh, it feels like an Almodóvar movie. Locuras in Wichita, you know, and I was like, oh my God. And then you read it, and it's like, and I had that same reaction that you've had. Yeah, right? I was like, locuras in Wichita. Oh my God. And then I was like, oh, but then you're disarmed, right? The title is like saucy in a way, and then the play kind of disarms you. Like, it sort of goes, not that it goes against it, but it's sort of fascinating because as the play moves forward, you start to think about what the meaning of that title is. Because titles are headers, right? So yeah, so it's like really super cool to keep that in my brain as the play was moving forward. We have one more clip, so I want to remind ourselves that we need to go to that. So Greg, clip number 3, the last clip of the day. Thank you.
Ya los pajaritos cantan, la luna ya se metió.
Oh my goodness. ¿Quién te lo dijo?
Un pajarito
pelirrojo.
pelirrojo.
Un pajarito pelirrojo. Ah, Telma. Ah, no importa. Por lo menos ella se acordó. Es mucho más de lo que puedo decir de Raúl y Cami. ¿Qué importa? Voy a hacer un wish.
Vamos a ver. Eso es lo que importa, ¿verdad? ¡Feliz cumpleaños!
¡Ay, Dios mío! ¡Ay!
Pero mujer, ¿por qué paró? Ya casi había llegado.
¿A dónde?
No importa. Son solo recuerdos. Entonces, ¿cuántos años tienes?
Ay, un caballero nunca hace esa pregunta.
Pues yo sí la hago, son solo números, no es eso lo que dicen por ahí.
Bueno, uno es tan viejo como uno se siente.
¿Ah, sí?
Sí.
¿Y cómo te sientes hoy, Carmelita?
Hoy, pues no sé. Ay, no sé, Joaquín. Hoy me siento pues como... Deja probar esto. Ay, está bueno. Pues mira, hoy me siento como una chica de 20. Pero no sé mañana.
No, hoy es lo que cuenta. 20. Ay, Ay, Dios mío, 20 años, ¿eh? A esa edad yo era un gallo caliente, corriendo de el rey del gallinero.
Oiga, se está pasando.
El rey del gallinero. Oh my God. Oh my Lord. It's so much fun.
For this, yeah, it's been so long since I've seen the play. Oh, I love you guys, Miriam, Frank.
Oh, it's so much fun. I love that moment of the cake, the little, you have it next to you, Miriam, and I'm just going to try it for a little bit. It's so cool. Ay, ay, ay. I wanted to check in with the audience to see if there are any questions. So if you have it in the chat, let us know. I think there's another Luis who works for Ostos who's moderating and guiding that. So Luis, in Ostos land, any questions from audience, just let us know. There is a comment, a beautiful comment by Elba Cabrera saying it's delighted to see you, Miriam Frank. Love the play in person and now on screen. Gracias y muchas bendiciones. No questions at the moment. Thank you. Well, just keep me informed, Luis. Thank you. We'll continue on our end. Frank, what are you doing now? I know we're in the pandemic. but as an actor, what are you thinking about? Like, what do you think about the field and the state of the art?
Well, obviously, I kind of hurt when the theaters closed last year. I've been lucky. I was able to have done a couple of commercials. I also did a little short, una película de cortometraje, Cupido trae bigote. Which is a nice little comedy about
another fascinating title.
Yeah, well, actually, also the story of two seniors who fall in love on the phone. So I guess I have no idea why they choose me to play a senior.
Typecasting.
It must be
fair.
because my hair is gray. All right. Yeah. I've been okay, actually. I've been able to do some things. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Louise. I was just trying to catch what you were saying. Yes.
Frank plays a fantastic heartthrob. So yeah, he's you fall in love with him. So yeah, it's obvious. You know that. Don't be humble.
Well, actually, the other side of the story is that I just realized recently I've been an actor member of Repertorio since 1978.
What?
And yeah, I've been probably there's about 3 or 4 of us, or 5 who are still left. Miriam and Juan Villarreal, a few. So yeah, we've been with Repertorio from day one, and it is a great, really great theater company. And Roberto is not here with us today, but he's a fabulous director. And I had the pleasure, actually, of having worked from the beginning with René Bush and Gilberto Saldívar. So yeah, I am fortunate in that sense. I'm a member of a great Spanish theater company. That makes me feel good.
Yay, absolutely. Miriam,
Dime.
cosas sobre Repertorio, tu trayectoria con Repertorio, o qué estás haciendo ahora como actriz, o qué estás pensando sobre el teatro.
That is the love
Muchas
of my
cuentas.
life. It's my oxygen. My oxygen is acting. Well, I started with Repertorio in 1969.
What?
I'm the oldest member of Repertorio. I was called to do the first production, and I was pregnant for my second child, my daughter, and I had to say no, la dama boba. So 3 months later, my baby was born, and they called me to do the first comedy called Las Pericas, which in 1969 won all the awards from all the newspapers. René Bush was the best director, Saldívar the best producer, the scenographer, I don't remember her name, was a Cuban, and I for an actress. And since then, I was with them until 1972, when they moved to where they are now, the Greenwich Repertorio Español, that I opened with Raúl Dávila, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? And I played Honey, and we also got all the awards that year in 72. And I have a surprise for you. I didn't know you were going to ask this, but I have a history here in this photograph when we did Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? And this is René Bush, that was the director. This is me, Miriam. This is Gilberto Saldívar. Jose Ferrer, that was the best actor, and Roberto Rodriguez Suarez, that was a well-known playwright, Puerto Rican. And this, I just found this yesterday in one of the drawers. So this is history from the beginning of the play. So I'm going to enlarge it. Thank you for
Please do.
that.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing.
And I did forget to say that aside from Wichita and the years that I have been with Repertorio, I have been doing La Gringa for the last 12 years.
Yeah, Carmen's beautiful play.
And as I understand, we'll be doing it again. So, yeah.
Well, why not? Why not?
Yeah, forever and ever. Luis, your connection, I know, legends, Miriam and Frank, legends. Sí, leyenda. Luis, I know your relationship with Repertorio is not as long.
It's not, but it's long. It's long, though. It's long.
But it's not 1969.
No. It's 90-something that we went with my wife's monologue, El aplauso va por dentro. And we started we were invited by Carolina Herrera, which is like my wife's godmother. And we started a relationship with Robert and Gilberto back then, and it's been wonderful. And now there's so many Venezuelans as well in Repertorio working so hard. It's a fantastic group of people. I love them, and I'm so privileged to being able to work with Frank and Miriam as well. I'm so lucky. I mean, I couldn't be more grateful to Robert and the whole team. So yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah, they serve such a unique function in New York. Sí, por favor, Miriam.
I was going to say that Lina Gallegos and I met at an audition in the Village. She was ringing the bell. I was behind her, and I said, "Are you going to the audition?" She says, "Yes." And we went upstairs, and she told me that she had just arrived from, I don't remember whether it was from Texas or California, and that she was going to try her fortune here, and she was a playwright. So at that moment, I said, "Oh, I belong to Repertorio Español. They have a playwright competition yearly, and it's called Nuevas Voces, Nuestras Voces, and it's due soon. Please submit it." And she did, and she won. And I was more surprised when I was cast to do this. Unbelievable.
It's all connected.
There's no coincidence.
Connected. It sounds like a cliche, but yeah, definitely it's all connected.
It is all connected. Oh my gosh, amazing. I hope that you know, we all love theater, so you know, and it's never going to go away because it's ancient. It's still it's been kicked around a lot over the centuries, but it's still with us. But I love Repertorio, and I hope that Spanish language theater in New York continues, and it's such a unique mission. And I always worry. So I would say I'm not shilling for Repertorio. I would just say, please give to them. Please donate, if I can say that, because they need it. And it's been a tough ride for smaller companies in the pandemic, especially because they have they don't have the same kind of infrastructure that other companies do, so they really have been hurting. So yeah, support Spanish language theater, please, and keep it alive in the United States. It's still radical to do Spanish language work in the United States because, many reasons that we won't get into politically at this moment. I wanted to check in with the audience and see if there are any questions, just to make sure. Luis at Ostos, let me know.
In the meantime, Caridad, I want to invite you guys to see what we're doing. I mean, after, my wife is a visionary, and in my house, whatever she says, we do. And she said at the beginning of the pandemic, we have to create for Zoom. We have to adapt our plays for Zoom, not just taping our repertory, but let's adapt our plays, because 90% of the time we're talking on to the two-way screen like we're doing right now. And we started doing that at the beginning, and it's going to be, we're celebrating our first 100 live events on Zoom, and we do it through her platform, mimilazo.net. And we adapted the plays for this stage. It's not a production, it's just us talking with no fourth wall. And it's been quite a discovery, because what you think is going to be impersonal and cold because you don't have the audience, it ends up being so intimate, because when you hit the gallery button, they're actually watching you from their homes, and they open literally their doors to our work. So I invite you guys to check our work at mimilazo.net as well.
Also I want to obviously thank Hostos and Repertorio. This new system that we're doing, I mean, I'm kind of lost in it, but when we closed the theater last year and we nothing to do, and suddenly with Hostos and Repertorio getting together and putting together this type of programming, which it's going to be with us forever, because it's going to be constant. We will be doing this often, and it's great. So,
Yay! Well, we're nearing the end of our beautiful conversation. I wanted to thank you all, Luis, Miriam, Frank. That incredible picture that you shared with us, Miriam. I'm still thinking about it. Oh my gosh! It's like, legend, absolute legend.
It is. Thank you.
Increíble, increíble. Thank you so much. Thanks for anybody who's watching. If you haven't seen Locuras in Wichita, you can see it. Please see it. There's a discount code. It's free and on demand. HOSTOS is the discount code. We have a little thank you here. Let me just make sure I address it. I want to express my gratitude. I will. There's a note. I just want to express my gratitude to Miriam and Frank for their decades of superb theatrical performances. You lift our spirits. And this is from Analisa Torres.
Oh my goodness.
So love,
thank you.
There's love emanating.
Gracias. Okay.
Sí, muchas gracias. Thank you all. Thanks for joining us today.
See you, Miriam, Frank. I love you guys.
Hasta luego.
Qué lindo verlo. Bye-bye. Thank you.
We'll see you again. Okay.
See you again.
Hopefully. Thank you.
Hopefully.